This is my Chapter 7 summary from our book, Radical Behaviorism. So, going to the vignette summary. Jen, the BCBA, she's frequently called to the classroom by teachers, but only really when they're at their wits' end with their students and the behaviors that they display. She wonders if the teachers are taking into consideration any issues the students are facing outside of school that might be playing a part of why they're acting. She speaks to her supervisor, Martha, and lets her know how she feels. She expresses so much frustration over the fact that she's only ever called for behavior, but not the academic piece. She wonders if teachers are readily accepting academic shortcomings, but why not the same for behavior? They seem to think that the behavior is the responsibility of the student. The student owns that behavior. They're acting out on purpose. They just don't know how to act. But if they get a failing grade on a spelling test, it's all hunky-dory. So this puzzles her. Going into the creativity portion of our book. So we talked about, or the book talks about, how there's really no evidence of being creative. To be honest, what does it mean to be creative? And they explain behaviors are labeled as creative just based on perception. And honestly, it's really mentalistic in nature because the criteria of creativity is not rooted in fact, but feelings or supposed criteria. Okay? I can consider you to be more creative because you can paint better than me, but does that mean that I'm less creative or you're more because you might do something a little bit better? It's considered to be a result of our own reinforcements. This differs from person to person. I don't know about you, but we've all had different upbringings. Maybe your parents told you you're a wonderful reader, you're a wonderful writer, you drew pretty pictures, or you could build things. Maybe some of you, your parents are like, they didn't give you that reinforcement, so you really never went for things that were considered creative. So you really don't know how creative or what skills that you do have. So continuing on that, like I said, what we might find to be creative or label as such depends on our own experiences. So I used to think that being creative was a wonderful thing. Not that it's good, bad, or anything of that nature. But when I found friends that were super talented at painting, at drawing, or anything of that nature, I would be a little bit discouraged if I felt that I wasn't on that level. But this was just based on my own experiences and abilities. But maybe my own abilities were considered creative to somebody else who did not have that same reinforcement or experiences. If a friend were to write a novel, it might be seen as creative, but that doesn't mean that you're not creative just because you're not inclined to have a similar writing interest or ability. Um, if we're familiar with the factors that we consider to be creative, we might find it less impressive. So, for example, I love to craft. I love to make wreaths. I love to do decor. I love to paint and draw. I've got a pole chalk wall behind me. Somebody who does not do that or might not think about those things might come over and see that and say, oh my goodness, how creative. Because they're not inclined in that way or they really don't have the experience. However, somebody else who is a much better painter than I am, might see the little nicks or gaps that I have on the wall, or might critique the different writings that I have or scribbles from friends' children who have visited. Credit where credit is due. So the behavior of interest or creativity does not stem out of nowhere. None of us are spontaneously Picassos or this creative being. It's a product of our own environmental histories. So going back to what I said earlier, maybe some of your parents reinforced, oh, draw me a picture, create this for me. you're going to try and do it more and more. You're going to get better. You're going to have those abilities, no matter what the product looks like. But because you have those reinforcements within your environmental history, you're going to have more creative experience. So, a quote from Johnston says, "It follows that praiseworthy behavior does not come from somewhere inside of us, but our own experiences, no matter how obscure the evidence is." So, reaffirms what I just said. Even if our creations aren't the best creativity examples, it doesn't matter. It comes from our experiences and what we've built upon. Okay, continuing on, credit where credit is due. We often think that somebody is more creative, they can do or produce whatever that might be. Maybe they can throw pottery. Maybe they can paint without tape. I know I sure cannot. But creativity does not come from within. None of us are born being these crazy creative geniuses. We have to all start from somewhere, and we all have to be reinforced in some way. So, going up back to the quotes in the book, it says, "It is only by recognizing the origin of laudatory behavior that we can target reinforcement in a way that will consistently have the desired effect of encouraging more of such behavior or improving its desirable features." So, the more encouragement we're getting, the more likely we are to keep going with its desirable features or behavior. In this case, creativity. Okay? Are we then blameless? No. So, just like we said with we can't take credit for creativity, it goes back to this as well. Undesirable behavior, just like desirable behavior and qualities, come from our own personal environmental histories, not from within. I don't believe that anybody is inherently bad. Um, for example, I love to watch serial killer shows or Criminal Minds. I used to love watching that and watching the behavior analysts try and figure out who the serial killer is, why they are the serial killer, and why they might act out the way things they do. And they would always reference their own histories, their environmental histories. What things were they reinforced with? What were they punished with? What helped make them what they are? So, it all plays a part. Punishments for undesirable behaviors can be complicated as well. We must remember that the undesirable behaviors are not just somebody choosing to act out, choosing, once again, being mentalistic. The consequences and punishments must be presented in a way that the behaviors are not blamed, like I said, mentalistic, but they also reduce the undesirable behavior. And that can be tricky if not done correctly. Okay, it comes down to responsibility. When thinking about our own behavior, we have the ability to be self aware. However, this skill is not, once again, within us. It's acquired via reinforcement and prompting of others about our own self descriptive verbal statements. So, for example, I'm a teacher. If I'm telling people, I am trying to be organized, I am trying to be responsible, and explaining the steps that I'm taking, I could have colleagues saying, you are responsible. I see that you're organizing. They are reinforcing those descriptions that I have, and it's going to strengthen that knowledge of those behaviors that I'm exhibiting. So I can become self aware about my organization as well as am I being responsible? Am I completing my work based on the reinforcement of their verbal statements and their promptings. And responsibility is once again a slippery slope into mentalistic thinking. Because if not explained correctly and if not thought of exactly as explained in the first bullet, it can make it seem like we have access and to free will. And we talked about free will and determinism and how all of our decisions are affected by other factors as well. Conscience. During difficult moments, we often find ourselves saying that we feel guilty or ashamed. Ah, I feel so guilty. I ate 4 slices of pizza. Or I'm so ashamed for hurting my mom's feelings, by telling her something. This terminology is mentalistic as well because we're resting on ideals rather than the facts of the behavior. Okay? And as we've gotten older, we've begun to associate, I have that as an error, I apologize, certain punishment contingencies, biological and physiological changes in stimuli with behaviors that have been taught to us to make us feel ashamed. For example, my mom can give me a look, my stomach can drop, my heart rate can increase, I can start to get real anxious, real fidgety, because I've been conditioned all throughout childhood knowing that look precedes some type of punishment or undesirable stimuli. Okay? So our reference is our Johnson textbook, Radical Behaviorism for ABA Practitioners. And then the questions I have for you, and some of these were answered within the PowerPoint as well. Can we take credit for our own creativity? How can we classify some ideas and works as creative and some not? Is it in the eye of the beholder? Can we take responsibility for our undesirable traits or behaviors? And this one's going to be a little bit more personalized. How is your conscience reinforced, whether it be positive or negatively? I told you my mom just has to look at me. Granted, it's a little less effective now that I'm married and a mom of myself, but a look used to do it for me. A certain tone of voice can cause anxiety in me, can cause, and I know that's a mentalistic term, can cause me to have an elevated, breathing pattern, blood pressure, feeling flush. So, what is or how are some of the ways that your conscience is reinforced? I'm interested to hear. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. Bye bye.